always say that we're not building a business, we're building a community. I really do believe that. Like it's it's different dealing with some place that's locally owned and locally founded as opposed to like a franchise where it's just a different experience. All of our modalities we tried to have them multi-person experiences.
Welcome back, friends, to the Erie Wellness Podcast, where we explore wellness topics, highlight the incredible local professionals, and encourage you to take ownership of your health and well-being. This week, we're welcoming back Jim Davis from Fire and Ice Wellness for round 2 on the podcast. In this episode, we're diving into the growing conversation around red light therapy, what it is, how it works, and some of the success stories that they are seeing right here in our community through this wellness modality. Welcome, Jim.
Well, thanks for having me back. Friend of the pod.
Yes, it's almost like a year later that we're able to record this podcast episode. You guys were just getting ready to open your doors.
Yeah, and we're starting to plan our 1 year anniversary here. So yeah, it's an exciting time. It's been a whirlwind of a year for us.
So the last time we talked, you and your wife were just about to open Fire and Ice Wellness. So now that you're a year in, how has this journey been? And share where you are located also to the listeners who might have missed our very first recording, and give a brief overview of what Fire and Ice Wellness is.
Yeah. In brief, we're located over in Longmont at Village at the Peaks, right next to Regal Cinemas and Spitz Mediterranean. It's a great little shopping center and a lot of really great neighbors. We offer sauna, cold plunge, red light therapy, cryotherapy. We have a hyperbaric chamber. We also do localized cryo treatments with our estheticians and body contouring. And since we have two amazing estheticians, we also do traditional facials and microneedling.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's my wife always calls it our biohacker bungalow.
And why did you guys decide to start this particular business?
We both fell in love with this when Danielle was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was caught very early and everybody's okay, but she had to do a minimum round of chemotherapy. And so we rented a hyperbaric chamber for our house to support her in her recovery from that. We were just so amazed by how well it worked for her, because the short story on that is putting you under pressure and feeding you a bunch of extra oxygen stimulates your marrow to start just producing stem cells, and so it floods your body with stem cells and would help her recover from the chemo. And then the side effect of it was that now her regular blood cells were just carrying extra oxygen and gave her a big energy boost on top of it. And so it was the best of all outcomes for somebody getting cancer treatments. And as that sent us kind of down the rabbit hole of, there's all these modalities out there that really can make people's lives better and reduce pain and help with recovery and do all these amazing things for you that are non-invasive, and you can do all these things to feel better before you start taking that first pill from the doctor, right? So there's a lot you can do there. And then we wanted to make it into a space that you could bring a friend and meet up with somebody, so that instead of meeting someplace and eating a donut and drinking a bunch of sugary coffee or drinking a bunch of wine, meet up someplace and you can both feel better once you leave.
No, I love that when you guys were talking about, let's create a space where you're doing healthy things together instead of feeling hungover after a girl.
Yeah.
You wake up feeling refreshed on a Saturday morning instead.
Exactly. And the social element is a part of our wellness too, like us as our connection with people and our community. So
right.
Yeah, we really believe in that.
For someone hearing this, actually I should say, so for this episode, we're going to be talking about red light therapy in particular. So for someone hearing about red light therapy for the first time, what is it and why are so many people talking about it right
now? Red light therapy, or the 25-cent word, is photobiomodulation.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's the idea that you under certain frequencies of light, um, they will stimulate your cells.
Mhm.
Analogous to how plant cells react to sunlight. There are certain wavelengths of light that can stimulate your cells. It has a number of different benefits to it. Everything from anti-inflammatory to skin health to uh, better sleep. There's a whole range of benefits to that, and we kind of get into that as we go. But kind of it stimulates the power plants of your cells, which are
Mhm.
mitochondria. There's four specific wavelengths that we target, which is it's red and near infrared. So it's uh, 633 nanometers, 810, 850, and 940. And you can kind of think of it in this way, that like the 940 is a longer wavelength. And so that gets deeper penetration. So when you're talking about like muscle health, because some people are using red light therapy for skin health, a lot of people use it for that, but athletes are using the same red light therapy and the same mechanisms of it, but they're targeting muscle tissue, which needs much deeper penetration, and it's denser tissue. Our machine really targets, four specific ones.
Okay. So do you change the settings then depending on what that person is looking for, or do you have different red lights that people are using?
Yeah, we can actually adjust that, and we can adjust the frequency of the light waves,
Mm.
so that we can target, whether it's skin tissue or subdermal fat layer, or vascular layer where you have most of your inflammation is lying, or or then you get to the muscle tissue and you really need to ramp it up. So we need to kind of be able to adjust the frequencies of those four key light waves
Hmm.
to enact better, or in some cases turn them off. So like the deep penetration one, if you're really targeting skin health, that's just extra noise. So it's better just to turn that off, and so it doesn't bleed into the other ones, and you can target better.
Hmm.
But sometimes we have too much. We'll just turn one off.
And why do you feel like it's getting a lot of hype nowadays?
It's interesting. It's an interesting topic because it's right at that intersection between, several different major trends that are going on. So you've got, on the one hand, you've got your, wellness optimization or biohacker crowd that's using it. You have a lot of interest in anti-aging and longevity, and then you have people using it for sports recovery, physical recovery,
Hmm.
uh, and then you also have it for non-invasive beauty treatments as well, and skin health. So it's this like interesting, crossroads of different trends right now, which is great. That's what makes it really fun to be in this space.
So, at a high level, what's happening in the body when you use red light therapy? And why does it have the potential to impact things like energy, your skin, your recovery?
Um, so what's happening is the photons from the red light are stimulating the mitochondria in your cells, and
Mhm.
that speeds them up faster to start producing collagen and ATP at 16 times their normal rate. And those are things that collagen production is something that, as we get older, we produce less and less of, and
Mhm.
need it just as much as we ever did. Um, that does two things. So one, you are now getting the food and collagen and ATP that your body's using to maintain tissue, but it's also stimulating the cell itself, and enacting a little a energetic motion,
Mhm.
which is important because when we're talking about anti-inflammation, that little bit of motion is allowing uh, zombie cells, or uh, which are cells that should have been, they're waste cells that are just lingering in your system,
Mhm.
around your vascular system, which also is getting, as you get older, gets stiffer because it's more inflamed, but also just stiffens with age. And so it's, as it gets less use, it's harder and harder for these cells to get to the exit ramp, right? So by by energizing the cells, it allows inflammation to get to where it needs to get for your body to get rid of it. So
Okay.
it's doing that with just energetic motion and then also producing two things that your body's using to maintain its tissue. So
That's really interesting to think of it that, we do have these cells inside of our bodies that are just kind of moving slow and almost in the way of these faster moving cells. And we just kind of need to
yeah,
like move them along through the system so that the cells that are high performing can kind of get to work.
exactly. That's one form of inflammation, and then the other form of inflammation is metabolic waste when you're burning glucose instead of oxygen. And so getting all that stuff to the your capillaries and blood vessels so that you can process it through your system, because your body means to for each one of those cells they've got a life cycle and they need to be processed out at some point, and sometimes they just get stuck and they're just kind of there. They're just in the way, creating more inflammation.
So, what would you say are some of the most common things that people are coming in for, and what are they actually noticing after they use the red light therapy?
Yeah, so some of the more, I mean, skin rejuvenation and collagen support. That's anti-aging and longevity is one of our most common protocols that we set up on there for people. Workout recovery and muscle soreness is kind of the other side of that. Like I said, it really depends on how much oomph you have to give that. You know, to penetrate muscle tissue takes quite a bit tighter frequency. So you go
Mhm.
from, frequency of anywhere from 10 to 290 for your outside tissue. And then you hit the muscle layer and it's measured in thousands. And it's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. So it's why to penetrate that deeper tissue is a different, it's the same mechanism, but it kind of a different wattage.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so we see those two differences. We get a lot of joint discomfort. Um, we have increasingly with our skin health one, we have several members that are using it specifically for eczema, which is uh, that's always really interesting to listen to their outcomes as they're pairing different things, and they're all trying to find the right combination of what's working best for eczema treatment. But they all agree that the red light is noticeably one of the key tools for them.
Mhm.
The We have several people that are using it for sleep and regulation of the circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
That's a really interesting one because that's one of the ones where it's not necessarily the same mechanism of stimulating the cells.
Mhm.
With that one, that's actually our 630 our 633 wavelength at 40 hertz. It will go in and out of the visual spectrum, and so it'll start to flash. And there's been a lot of studies on it that flashing light therapy at 40 hertz and 40 hertz sound therapy at the same time, what it does is the gamma waves of your brainwave pattern actually fluctuate at exactly 40 hertz in everybody. And so they get it, if that gets out of rhythm, flashing light therapy can actually put that back into rhythm, kind of like a conductor, putting the orchestra back into rhythm. And so that has a number of neurological effects, um, going to sleep, mood, um, you know, clarity of mind. It does a number of different things. That's really
Mhm.
interesting. We also have a few people that are using it for support in regrowing hair and recovery from the ones using it for recovery from hair transplant surgery, and so we have a few people that are using it for that too.
Okay. So kind of I mean, it hits a lot of areas of what our population is going to be struggling with. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The cellular health, it impacts a lot of different things.
and a lot of the listeners are going to be like, okay, how long do I have to be doing this for till I see results? I'm sure that's a common question. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, we usually recommend a minimum of 2 times a week. We have people that, people that want more immediate results will up that number.
Mhm.
Like I said, our eczema people usually they'll go more like three, sometimes essentially every other day, 3 to 4 times a week. Um, and it's only a 20-minute session. So
Mhm.
it doesn't take long, but the more of a cadence you have with it, the better results you get. Um, but at a minimum, we usually say twice a week is a pretty good routine maintenance mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even just exercise, like I think some people, it's like sometimes their sweet spot's just 2 to 3 times a week, and that's all they need, and they see amazing results. And then some people might need a little bit more, but sometimes going all in at 7 days, 7 days a week is just too much. Your body can't catch up. So,
Exactly. And the most common thing actually that we get, one of the most common things is people coming in from work, from the office,
mhm.
because it's 20 minutes in the red light bed, and then they'll do 3 minutes on our cryo chamber. They feel amazing, and they're right back to work. They don't need a shower. They don't need to redo makeup. They just come in, get like a exact lunch break length spa treatment, and they're back out to work.
Feeling energized, ready to tackle dinner time.
It's like that window between about 11 in the morning to about 3 in the afternoon. We've got a lot of nice dressed people coming through. A lot of business casual.
So, over the past year at Fire and Ice, what's a success story that's really stood out to you?
Um, well, there's a couple. I'll start with with my own. Honestly, is my own testimonial
Mhm.
with our red light bed. We One of the protocols we have is our metabolism protocol, and it's uh, uh, it's meant to target the subdermal fat layer,
Mhm.
and you have both brown fat and white fat in your body. Brown fat metabolizes easier, and so it's the by stimulating that specific area, it's they refer to it as beiging the fat, making to moving it from long-term storage to short-term storage.
Mhm.
And so I started, uh, as we said, like last year, starting a business was a real challenge, and so I was very reactive and couldn't schedule anything, couldn't plan anything, and ate on the fly. And I picked up a significant amount of weight in that year. So starting on January 1st, I was able to put a regular schedule and routine into place and do it. I was just doing essentially a keto diet, which I've done before and I've had success with in the past.
Mhm.
And um, and then I also incorporated our metabolism protocol. And what I noticed was that when I'm really going well on the keto diet on its own, I will drop 2 to 3 pounds a week, right? With when I'm at that early part of the curve. By including the metabolism protocol, that increased to more like 3 to 5 pounds per week. So I dropped significant weight quickly. It, it,
Mhm.
it ramped up what I was already doing and with great effect. So I highlight like that was one of the ones where so since January 1st, I've now lost 53 pounds, which is a great outcome. And it's a little tough to exactly put your thumb on this is the full extent of the role that red light played, but it's the only other change I've made to when I've done the same thing previously.
Mhm.
As scientific, as close to scientific as I can get. And yes, I'm a data point of one, but that was my experience with our metabolism protocol.
Mhm.
The other really amazing experience to me was we had uh, a gentleman who was a member of the U.S. ski team, and his shoulder had been messed up, been struggling with that for quite a while, and he started implementing because a lot of his was inflammation in his shoulder, so he
Mhm.
started implementing our anti-inflammatory protocol from the red light, and then mixing it with our cryotherapy, which is the cold therapies are also profoundly anti-inflammatory. So so he started mixing those two, and he was doing that 3 times a week, and it took him about 3 months, a little bit more than 3 months, call it 3.5. And eventually he went back to his doctor and said, my my shoulder actually doesn't feel that bad. I don't think I need that cortisol shot this month. When you
Mhm.
can get to that point where you're not getting the shot, that's
Mhm.
a really outstanding outcome. That's
Mhm.
you're not doing that because it's Wednesday. You're doing that because you've got real pain. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, to help for somebody to do something that's completely non-invasive, that's, in fact, a relaxing experience, to
Mhm.
and get that kind of outcome. That was really that's why we got into this. It
Mhm.
really was. It was such a pleasure to see him, get some relief without putting a bunch of, junk in his body.
No, those are two incredible stories. Great tools to have to your back pocket. Like you said, it's like I was
Yeah.
doing the things, but I added in this extra thing and it really helps speed things along a lot quicker. So it's great.
Right. Yeah. Um, it really does work and it does function. It's not the cure. It's not the solution unto itself, but it's a tent pole that you can put up to help your journey.
Mhm. Well, and I love that you guys are creating these different protocols to be able to help your
Yeah.
clients
Yeah.
and share what's worked. And it's like, come look, and I'll show you that, what are the different things we've created and what are the results we've seen, and let's see if it works
Yeah.
for you. And like you've continuously said, it's an option instead of like having to take a daily cream or a shot. It gives
Yeah.
you options, which is great.
Mhm. Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's something that you can do as another addition to whatever regimen you're on anyway. So
Hmm. Hmm.
bring relief.
Right. Which we're grateful for Western medicine when it needs to
Yeah.
absolutely happen. But it's also nice because sometimes, like when you're mixing some of those things, the side effects aren't
Yeah.
great if you're taking another something. So it's great to have these more natural alternatives too.
I agree with you. Like I'm all for, the outcomes of Western medicine, but sometimes you've just gotta it's nice to be able to add some things that are just therapeutic that, you know, you don't need to rely on more pills or pills that counteract the side effects of other pills or like getting on that pharmacological treadmill. That's not always the best answer. That's a predictable answer, but it's not always the best one for you as a person.
So, if this is one of the first episodes of the Erie Wellness podcast that you're listening to, one thing that we've been starting this year is collecting listener questions. So, this community question was, can it help with redness from scars as well as joint pain?
So the first one is the redness from scars. Absolutely, it helps with that. Again, it's the stimulation of collagen production because the fascia that is what your tissue is made up of is based in chains of collagen. So that's helping repair. That is also the same mechanism that's helping to repair scars and
Mhm.
reduce scar tissue. Um, the other one was joint pain. That's usually inflammation based, and, and so yeah, the uh, the red light is really good uh, for helping with inflammation overall. Um, the I kind of view the combination with red light and cold therapies as being the red light kind of helps move the inflammation to where it can get to the exits, and the cold therapy opens the exits wider.
Mhm.
So it opens up your vascular system and helps
Mhm.
get that out in a rush. So so the combination of those two is really great for inflammatory style joint pain. But there's really two types of joint pain. So you have joint pain from the mechanical joint pain versus the inflammation joint pain. And
Mhm.
so Mechanical joint pain, that's different. If you've got like bone on cartilage or something like that, like that's a separate type of pain. But usually pain is associated with inflammation.
So, if someone's feeling curious about this conversation, what does getting started look like at Fire and Ice?
We always encourage people to come in and do a free complimentary consultation, get a look at the space and the equipment and what we do, and let us talk to you and find out what your pain point is and how we can help. What are you trying to solve for? Because we've got a number of different ways to get to it. That's always a good solution. We also have some really good intro offers where you can come in and try out several services. We have our rejuvenation package and our reset package, where the rejuvenation package is you get to come in and do our fire and ice room, which is our sauna and cold plunge tub. It's a private room. You can go back and forth as many times as you want and do the contrast therapy, which is an amazing experience. It really is. It is a life-changing experience. And then after that, 20 minutes in the red light bed. And after the red light bed, then a 30-minute mini marshmallow facial, which is really amazing. So it's a nice little spa day. You get to try out multiple things and then also get to see the space. Our other reset package is similar. It's just not, the facial isn't for everyone. So we'll offer a third service, usually our compression therapy up front, which is lactic acid and is better for after workout recovery.
Okay.
And both of those are just $89. So $89 for a sauna session and a facial and a red light session is a pretty amazing offer. And it's a good way to check the things that we do.
Yeah, get a feel for what you like, what you don't like, and
what's going to work for you, because that's the important thing, is the conversation about how can we help you, because there's a number of different ways to do it. Yep. And some of that is, what kind of time do you have? Do you have time to do twice a week? If you only have time to do once a week, then we may want to do something different, like our hyperbaric chamber, which is, that's a 1 hour session, but it's, do that once a week. Or our sauna and cold plunge, try that once a week. If that's all the time you have, if, middle of the workday, that's the only time you have is like a lunch break window, we can totally do that. We can work with that. Red light and cryo is a perfect addition right there. So it's really about what you want to target and what kind of time commitment can you make to this. So that initial conversation about how can we help is the most important part that we do, and my favorite part of the job, if I'm completely honest.
What do you feel like makes you unique at Fire and Ice, and what kind of culture do you hope to create?
I always say that we're not building a business, we're building a community. I really do believe that. Like, it's different dealing with some place that's locally owned and locally founded, as opposed to like a franchise where it's just a different experience. All of our modalities that we tried to have them multi-person experiences. For example, we have a 5-person sauna, and we'll have parties in there. We had a book club that met in there, which was, I thought, a really interesting choice. And we have group events in there, and then we have our halo salt therapy, which will comfortably seat 3. That also has red light with it. There's everything we did. We tried to do it to accommodate multiple people, so we can have wellness be a shared experience instead of a clinical experience, or or the feeling like you're going to the gym by yourself. This doesn't have to be a you thing. This is going to be a we thing.
Well, thanks again, Jim, for joining me today on the Erie Wellness Podcast, and for opening our eyes to the world of red light therapy, helping explain it a little bit better to our listeners, and for sharing more about the work that you're doing at Fire and Ice Wellness. And thank you all to those who have listened to this episode. If this conversation encouraged you or taught you something new, I'd love for you to share it with a friend or a family member. We'll see you again next time on the Erie Wellness Podcast. All right, friends, before we wrap up, Here's the part I need to share. This podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. I'm just your friend behind the mic. Nothing shared on this podcast creates a patient relationship with any of our guests or replaces the guidance of your physician, professional coach, or other qualified expert. And the views shared by guests are entirely their own and don't necessarily reflect the beliefs or values of the Erie Wellness Podcast. My goal is to simply create a space for real, open conversations that help us all learn, grow, and feel a little more connected on our wellness journeys. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you back here next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Erie Wellness Podcast. If something from this conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll take it with you into your week or share it with someone in our community who might need it. To subscribe, just head to the main page for the Erie Wellness Podcast, right where you're listening, and tap subscribe. And don't forget, when you start to feel better, you start showing up better in all areas of your life, and you deserve that.